Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, if it's Saturday, it can only mean one thing. The fate of the world will now be decided. Who's up, who's down? Whom do we award thumbs up for, and whom do we award the thumbs down? All right, well, as per usual, more thumbs downs than thumbs up. I'll go first. And tomorrow, as we all know, will be the May the 9th commemoration of victory in World War II in Russia. A huge event, as you know, Peter. And this year, only some 20 ambassadors will be in attendance. Now, it really is an absolute disgrace that countries, particularly countries that were liberated by the Red Army, do not attend this commemoration, this extremely important event. And it's nothing short of outrageous that Germany does not attend, because Germany, of all countries, has to attend, whether he likes Russia or he doesn't like Russia, likes Putin, doesn't like Putin, doesn't agree with Russia's foreign policy or whatever. Germany doesn't get to decide whether what aspect of Russia it likes or it doesn't like. What Germany did, we all know, we don't even have to go into it. For that, it has to atone. Year after year, whoever's in charge in Russia, whoever's in charge in Germany, it has to atone and come on this one day in sackcloth and ashes. And it's an absolute disgrace that Germany has been allowed to get away with snubbing Russia year after year on May the 9th.
Well, it's appalling, and what it is it's murdering 27 million people all over again. That's how visceral it is here. That's how deep it is. Again, you know, we have to remember, for our viewers that don't know, there isn't one person alive in Russia today that wasn't impacted by those events.
Right.
Okay, it is part of their DNA. And I'll tell you, you know, contrary to the nonsense you hear in Western media, this is what the primary reason why Russians have a complete aversion to war, because they know the cost of it. Right. And they paid the highest cost of all. Right. And not being given the historical recognition of it is appalling. You know, when I, like, for example, I came across someone recently talking about what the Hungarians had to pay and all that. You know, 600,000 Red Army troops died liberating Hungary, just Hungary.
Yeah, that's
right. That's more than the U.S. lost in the entire war.
No, it was that's right. It was one of the heaviest battles towards the end of the war. It was incredible. And again, all these countries, a number of them, incidentally, were not only liberated by the Red Army, but actually took part in a minor junior capacity in the actual invasion of the Soviet Union. Therefore, again, they don't get to decide, well, you know, I don't really like Putin. I don't like Russian foreign policy. I don't like what they did in Crimea. You don't get that choice. The horrors of what was perpetrated, an unprovoked aggression against the USSR, is something that will live on in infamy for millennia. So you don't get to just, you know, pick and choose what you do.
And with the exception of what was called Czechoslovakia at the beginning of the war in the Soviet Union, because it had been truncated, obviously. I mean, that was the only government in Eastern Europe that wasn't fascist, neo-fascist, you know, one degree or another. And, you know, and they want to go back, you know, about the sanctity of their sovereignty. I mean, these countries were fascistic. They had deplorable minority rights. So there's nothing to really cry about them. Okay. And as you just pointed out, many of them participated in the invasion. And Russia was the Soviet Union was fortunate enough that a number of Hungarian and Romanian divisions were around Stalingrad. So when the breakout came, They weren't well trained enough or had the fire in their stomach for that illegal, aggressive, genocidal war. Okay, so you're right. The Germans have no right to say no here, and a shame on them. And for a country that I have praised in the past for dealing with its horrific past, but on this event, this is the high profile one that you show your atonement. Okay, and shame on you that you don't do that now. You're petty, petty, petty.
Exactly. No one is saying today's Germany is the same as Hitler's Germany, or that they in any way support those crimes or justify their crimes. But they have to do it just like Willy Brandt when he knelt on his knees. You have to do it once a year. You've got to get down on your knees and apologize for the horrors that were perpetrated by your country, because this is a successor state to Nazi Germany. It's not the Nazi Germany, successor state. Nonetheless, you are responsible for the actions of that state.
And I'd like to point out to everyone how in the West you have these stereotypes of what a Russian is, what Russian history is all about. I have lived in Moscow 20 plus years, and I've never heard people disparage Germans. Right. They disparage Nazis and fascists. Yes. But Germany as a country, as a nation, I've never heard the angst, to use a German word, against them. Juxtapose that how Russians are portrayed all of the time, all through history. It's the same stereotype, okay? So I think there's, on this side of the pond, there's a whole lot more sophistication, and asking for recognition for the loss between 1941 and 1945, right. That's not a small ask, okay? That is a demand, and it should be met.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, I have a thumbs down. Of course, I start out with Blinken. What else am I going to do here? He's demanding that Taiwan be part of the World Health Assembly, which is a subset of the World Health Organization. Because you know what, and I'm going to paraphrase him, because Taiwan should be there because this is dealing with the pandemic, and the pandemic transcends politics. Right. Okay, well, Tony, you're a hypocrite again, okay? You're a hypocrite every day, and I'm going to tell you why on this one here. You and your government have politicized the vaccine all over the world, okay? Oh, but when it comes to Taiwan, we're not going to politicize it, okay? Blatant, obvious, stinking to heaven hypocrisy here, okay? Right. I mean, it's just appalling. The lack of reflection of these people here. We as we have documented here on the Gaggle, Western ambassadors in Kiev have pressured the Ukrainian government not to take the Sputnik V vaccine from Russia. But no vaccine from Europe is coming to Ukraine, but an offer from Russia is being denied. So who's playing politics with it here? How many people know through Western media, how many countries in the world are using the Sputnik V vaccine? Over 40. And that is after, all of the Western ambassadors constantly putting pressure on. Then we had this bizarre event that happened 7 years ago in the Czech Republic. A munitions dump blows up. It's blamed on Russia. When the Czech government was in negotiations with Moscow for the vaccine. All I can say.
No, that's right. That's right. And the Americans have been doing this all over the world. They leaned on Brazil. Brazil was also going to order the Sputnik V vaccine. They leaned on him. I mean, it is an amazing thing. I mean, the whole idea of playing this petty politics when the health of millions is at stake, it's really just the worst kind of scumminess. And again, the hypocrisy, you're accusing Russia of politicizing Sputnik. When you're doing this, you're denying medical treatment to millions of people. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. So when they they like to make the point, well, in Russia, only 8% of the public has been vaccinated. And in the meantime, they're sending the vaccine out all over the world. Yeah, there's no contradiction there. In Russia, as you know, you can take the vaccine or not take the vaccine. No one is mandating you. If you want the vaccine, you go to a supermarket, and I think a supermarket or in any GUM store, you go there and it's done for you. So it's just simply that Russia is saying, we're not forcing anyone to take the vaccine. That's the reason why only 8% whatever vaccinated.
And there's no debate about it even.
Right.
It's just out there. You make your choice. It's easily done, and that's it. But no one is saying, "Oh, you're not vaccinated," or "What do you think?" Nobody talks about it. It's a choice here, and it has long historical cultural roots. I mean, we can talk about another time, but there's no contradiction, as you point out. Okay,
that's right. Okay, so I think it's Michael. In other thumbs down, the Forbes has published its latest billionaires list. And it says that it's been a year like no other. And we're not talking about the pandemic, and says the number of billionaires on Forbes's 35th annual list of the world's wealthiest exploded to an unprecedented 2,755, 660 more than a year ago. And altogether, they are worth $13.1 trillion, up from 8 trillion on the 2020 list. There are a record number of 493 newcomers added to the list. So it is very, very heartening that in this time of hardship, COVID, the economic downturn as a result of COVID, it is very, very heartening that the billionaires have expanded their net worth in such a spectacular fashion and have expanded. So many new billionaires are coming up. Truly, it's like a rising tide raises all boats. I mean, it is quite extraordinary. And then you think, well, I wonder what this pandemic is really all about. Let me think. Maybe very, very rich people have figured out a way of becoming even much richer than they were.
Well, it's proof positive that neoliberalism works.
Yes.
For them.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
No, we've seen the greatest transfer of wealth in history.
Right. Yes. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
As they make you bicker in the United States about masks, who's going to the bank?
That's right. That's right.
And who's not going to the bank?
But all of these people like Bezos, Gates, Elon Musk, I mean, their net worth has doubled. I mean, it's extraordinary in the past year. Their net worth has doubled. I mean, well, let me think. No wonder they are so enthusiastic. Let's keep the lockdowns as long as possible. Let's keep all this mask mandate. Let's keep people frightened as long as possible. Let's keep all the social distancing and everything. Let's not go back to normal. Let's build back better into the indefinite future, because we've got a lot more money to make.
Oh yeah, and what little infrastructure Biden wants to put into Build Back Better, it's these billionaires that will take full advantage of it. They don't pay for it though, do they? They get to take full advantage of it. It's really a great system for them. Right. All right. It's being considered again more weapons for Ukraine, Patriot and Javelin missile systems. Again, I want to reiterate what we've said earlier, is that, when I come across media coverage of this, it's never explained that this is an intra-Ukraine conflict. They always frame it as a Ukraine-Russia conflict, which it is not. And this is a problem that Ukraine has had since the illegal overthrow of the government in February of 2014, backed by the United States, backed by the Darth Vader known as Victoria Nuland, and she's back in the saddle again in number 3 at the State Department. So I wish they would talk about negotiating and ending this conflict. There is a roadmap. It's called Minsk 1 and 2. But Tony Blinken, who made a recent visit to Kiev, at the same time when neo-Nazis glorify the Waffen-SS division battalions that the Ukrainians had during the Second World War. So again, here we go again. Hypocrisy, hypocrisy. You're fighting for democracy as these people have jackboot through the streets of Ukraine, okay? Which is never reported.
Never, exactly. It's never reported. And the US government keeps quiet about this. An amazing thing. And so instead, we got this propaganda line that, whoa, how can Ukraine be Nazi? How can there be Nazis in Ukraine? Zelensky's a Jew. It doesn't matter. I mean, if Zelensky keeps his mouth shut when these things happen, then it doesn't matter whether he's a Jew or not a Jew. He basically keeps his mouth shut. And in fact, he has kept his mouth shut only when there were actually protests from Israel and from Germany over that big demonstration that you were talking about, the SS, the Waffen SS division. Then suddenly he came out with a mealy-mouthed criticism, but not until Israel and Germany raised that issue, and that's not even to address all of the idolatry of Bandera and all the collaborators, all the street name changes to commemorate the collaborators during the war. This is an ongoing thing in Ukraine, which is never reported. And because the media have to maintain the nonsense that Russia is fascist, Putin is a fascist, but everything that's been going on in Ukraine, that is kept down. And of course, yeah, I mean, as for selling these weapons, they're not selling. I mean, they're just giving them to them. It should be obvious to them. Russia will not allow them to defeat the Donets. So this is a completely useless, destructive, pointless exercise that cannot do anyone any good, because this is a war that Kiev cannot win. It will not be allowed to win. So why are you giving them these weapons? It's absolutely reckless and irresponsible policy.
It's democracy versus autocracy.
That's it. Yeah.
All righty. My next one here. This one really made me laugh because it is so pathetically stupid. We have a General Townsend. He's head of the U.S. Africa Command, and he has come out very vocal that the Chinese may be looking for a base in Africa on the Atlantic coast. China has one foreign base outside of its sovereign borders, and that's it. And the United States has what? How many here? Over 800. And George, right. I learned something today. 29 bases in Africa itself. Okay.
Nice.
So I mean, it's being mulled. It's being rumored that China may be looking for a base there. I mean, so I guess that's also the American sphere of influence. All of Africa. Africa has no say in it, right. Though even he had to admit is that, the Chinese are building a lot of roads and bridges and tunnels in Africa. Okay. U.S. military doesn't do that except for a nation building in Afghanistan for 20 years that has been all for naught. Okay. Right. Yes. So, I mean, again, and everyone, why is Townsend doing this? Threat inflation. I mean, we need more money. We need more bases. Okay. Threat inflation. Anytime these clowns stand up and shout, it's threat inflation. They're trying to scare you, okay? So the Chinese may or may not be looking for one. If a sovereign country in Africa wants to open up a base in them, it's their business, okay? It's not the business of Tony Blinken or General Townsend.
Right. No, that's right. And it's the whole idea of complaining about this. You remember how the United States is indignant in telling Russia that it has no right to protest a sovereign country's decision to join NATO. There's no right. Country on its borders joining NATO has no right. It has no right to criticize a country hosting U.S. forces or hosting a U.S. base near its borders. No right. And here they are complaining, Americans complaining about, as you say, I mean, if a country decides to lease a base to the Chinese, that's a sovereign country's decision. And since it's in Africa, it poses no threat whatsoever to the United States, no threat whatsoever to any NATO member. And yet they're complaining about it as if Africa is the West's backyard. Hey, well, it belongs to us. What do you mean, sticking your oar into Africa? Like the Middle East, hey, it belongs to us. What are the Chinese doing in the Middle East?
I'm pretty good with geography. I don't think any African country borders the United States.
I don't think so either. That's my recollection.
You're up.
So my next thumbs down is NATO, which is now holding one of its huge exercises. It's called Exercise Steadfast Defender. Now, NATO is slimily always calling its exercises Defender, because it has to maintain this fiction. It's a defensive alliance where we're defending countries. Never really spells out defending against whom. Who's about to invade? Who is threatening your allies? It never spells this out. But we are there defending them. With this 30-country alliance that is encircling Russia. That everything is all purely defensive. Of course, NATO hasn't done anything defensive in decades, and it's essentially desperately seeking missions for itself, which means seeking opportunities for aggressive action. And yet it conducts these exercises, and imagine, it's everywhere. It's in the Black Sea, the Baltics, everywhere, and it imagines that Russia is quite happily looking on. Well, you just go right ahead. Don't worry about us. We don't. And imagine that NATO then gets indignant when a Russian plane buzzes one of NATO's military aircraft, or a Russian plane gets very near to one of NATO's warships. I wonder why that might be. So, yeah, big thumbs down for NATO.
Yeah, they're always looking for threats. Threats, because with no threat, there's no reason for them to exist. We say this over and over and over again. The logic of NATO is a fallacy from the get-go, okay? Ever since the end of the Cold War, okay? And that's it. Though this may, and on top of it, I've talked to former service people in the Navy and in the Army. These exercises, they're a joke, okay? Yes. They're a joke. Okay, it's basically the U.S. moving pieces on the chessboard. Okay, the U.S. will never say, we're gonna the Poles, we got them on, they got our back. No, they don't think that way. Okay, oh yeah, the Romanians could be key in this here. They don't think that way. No. So and nobody trusts the Turks. Okay,
that's exactly right.
So I mean, it's so much propaganda, and they spend enormous sums of money. Even Twitter. You say people they want to be what is it? Monitor people that don't have faith in NATO. Right. Faith. They even use words like anyway.
Because a lot of the money that goes to NATO is primarily used for propaganda or public relations. That's where all that money goes, and NATO is a massive propaganda outfit. I mean, for all of these Facebook, Twitter, all of the think tanks, there's a massive constant barrage from NATO, to keep the moolah going. I mean, it really is just like, lobbying for more.
I don't know whether
funds in order to fund more and more lobbying. I mean, not to mention all they
have something like the NATO.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the meals. I mean, they have something like the NATO Parliamentary Assembly.
Yeah, that's right.
God, really? You're joking.
Yeah, NATO Parliamentary Assembly. Yes. In other words, very nice perks, lots of very well-paid positions. So everyone who gets on the NATO gravy train is getting a lot of money. You run all this NATO Council, NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and then all these conferences and meetings, all very lavishly catered. So if you get on that gravy train, you're going to be eating and drinking well.
And we know how you feel about Russia. Okay, all righty. I have a very conflicted thumbs up, thumbs down. This is kind of one of those weird ones here. It looks like, and we've talked at length about it, it looks like Liz Cheney is finally on her way out of leadership in the Republican Party. And that's good. But the problem is who's replacing her, this Elise Stefanik, which is no different than Liz Cheney, except for she won't speak openly negatively about Donald Trump. I mean, here's a person, I'll use my own words here, saw John Bolton as being soft. She was vehemently against the Trump administration negotiating with the Taliban. I mean, this is a ultra extremist. Okay, so they just got a woman, a Democrat from New York, Republican from New York, replacing Liz Cheney. No change whatsoever. This was all personal, and it shows that even Trump called Liz Cheney a warmonger. Well, her replacement is a warmonger.
Right,
okay,
right.
and I really wish, if Trump is going to start picking people, I think he should have pointed that out. He didn't, and I'm angry about that, George.
Now, for Trump, she has one great quality, that's Stefanik. She was an ardent defender of his, particularly during the first impeachment. She was one of his designated defenders, and I think that's why he's strongly in her corner. But as you say, her record, is hardly inspires anyone. However, she isn't Liz Cheney, and Liz Cheney is the worst. I mean, there's just no question. She's a terrible, terrible person, because it's not just that about her foreign policy and her desperate desire to bring back the good old Bush-Cheney years. I mean, for her, it really is a matter of just trying to crush any attempt by anyone within the Republican Party to steer the party away from the sort of the Bush-Cheney interventionism, warmongering. Remember Afghanistan, how she sought to sabotage Trump's withdrawal from Afghanistan, and she isn't done yet, because I think that I think it's likely she will be kicked out from the leadership next week. I think that she will run for the presidency in 2024. Of course, she won't do well in the Republican Party, but I think she will run then as a third-party candidate, just in order to sabotage the Republicans. But particularly if Republicans select somebody who is, whether Trump or anyone else, who's going to be an anti-interventionist, and that she's going to be the sort of the spearhead of the neoconservatives. The neocons will all get behind her, and probably she won't be a significant factor in the election, but you never know. She may just be able to just peel away enough votes, get enough money to be a significant, in a close election, she might have a significant role.
But think of all the campaign strategists. Oh, I'm going to buy another house in the Hamptons, okay?
Exactly.
Because the Lincoln Project and all that money will flow in. Of course, he doesn't. He's got as much of a chance as a snowball in hell. But think of all the grift. That's going to be the grift train.
Grift train, because there's going to be a lot of money behind it. There's not many votes, but a lot of money. So that's a big deal. It's the money that counts, not votes. The military-industrial complex and all the rest, they're going to throw a lot behind her, particularly as her target will be a non-interventionist Republicans. They want that defeated. So there's going to be a lot of money poured into her campaign. And therefore, as you say, she's going to hire all these advisors, who all got their hands out for the goodies. It's going to be extremely sordid, but she could make the difference in a close election.
Well, we know for sure she'll be on MSNBC every night.
No question. No question. I was going to select that one as well.
You're up.
A time for a thumbs up. A thumbs up is probably, people have seen it, but it's worth looking at. The president of Azerbaijan was interviewed by a BBC reporter, and the BBC reporter asked him the usual question: why are you repressing political opponents? You're cracking down on the media, internet is unavailable, and so on and so forth. And he, of course, disagreed with all that, and then he just launched into the question of Julian Assange. Right, you're a representative of the British government. What about Julian Assange? We'll go, well, Mr. President, I'm asking the question. No, I know, I'm going to ask you a question. How do you justify what you've done to Julian Assange? And this went on for about 2 minutes, continually just haranguing her about the British treatment of Julian Assange. She really was completely flummoxed. Like Tony Blinken, who was unprepared for what happened in Anchorage. She clearly was unprepared for this perfectly good, perfectly appropriate response from President Aliyev of Azerbaijan. So, well, people should look this up, look it up on YouTube for this little snippet.
Well, the emperor has no clothes,
Right.
George. Okay.
Right.
This is exactly what happens. Okay. When they go around lecturing the world, then someone turns around and say, well, what about this, this, and this? They are so caught off guard because they believe that they are the embodiment of virtue, and only they have virtue. Everyone else is wanton. Okay. And this is just this mindset here. I mean, I'm not going to defend what they do in Azerbaijan, but the president's got a good point.
Very
okay.
good. Exactly. Who are you to get on your high horse and lecture us about how we deal with journalists? And it's a very powerful point, because this guy Julian Assange is an award-winning journalist, famous throughout the world, and the way he's been treated, I mean, it's absolutely horrific. So yeah, who exactly are the British to go around lecturing anyone? They're treating journalists worse than anyone, worse than Aliyev, worse than Putin, worse than anyone. It's an absolute disgrace. And if BBC reporters get to be a little bit more humble as a result, well, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. That is a good thumbs up. I have another thumbs down. This whole introduction into Congress using terms like birthing person. And but what's really interesting to me, and you and I of the same generation, when we were growing up, they started introducing girls sports, okay, and and pushing them up, and you can compete too, and it was something that was. I think you accepted it as normal. That's fine. They want to play baseball, gymnastics. That's why not? We have fun doing it. Why can't they do it? Just common sense thing. But this birthing person, it's really quite amazing how these wokeists want to disappear women altogether. Right. This is the most anti-feminist group, a movement it's so hard for me to comprehend. Right. I mean, everything they're doing is against women. I know. These are the new misogynists.
I know it is kind of amazing. It is, and of course it's nonsensical, because of course men cannot give birth, and no matter how much you mess around with words, men still cannot give birth. I mean, men can take female hormones, men can do some superficial surgical adjustments. They still aren't going to be able to give birth. I mean, it's a ridiculous pretense. It really is ideology trumping common sense, as if somehow, well, if you use it, birthing person, as if a man can give birth as well as a woman, it's nonsensical. And of course, as you say, I mean, how is it pro-women when you're saying that, well, anything a woman can do, a man can do, like, well, a woman can give birth, well, a man can give birth. I mean, first, it's wrong, but secondly, you're undermining what is particularly distinctive about women.
Yeah, and it was. I think her name was Cori Bush, the congresswoman that was. She's just been recently. Right. She came in 2020, and she has a very interesting backstory. I mean, she's one of the only working class people in Congress, probably for a very long time. I don't agree with her politics, obviously. Right. Okay, right. But she got there on her own power, and that's how the process works. And we accept it. But I mean, the way she really kind of tied herself up into a pretzel, because she was saying how Planned Parenthood helped her become a mother. And all of us tend to think, well, it's kind of the most misnamed organization ever, okay? Because it's an abortion factory.
That's right.
All right. So again, this bastardization of the language, destroying meaning, it's always going to end in a bad place. And you and I studied communism very, very closely. Communism is an idea, actual existing socialism as it was practiced. And this is what they do. They play with words. They change the meaning. And what they do is they disappear people and ideas in the process. You and I have seen this all before. Right. Okay. And it ends in a bad place.
It ends in a bad place. And of course, as we have the Soviet experience where they had to change their policies drastically because, well, surprise, surprise, it led to a disaster, sudden collapse in birth, I mean, sudden collapse in fertility. So they had to switch policy. Well, all right, maybe men and women aren't equal. You know, maybe cultivating motherhood is not a bad idea if we want the population to replace itself. So again, you see this Soviets, hey, we're going to abandon all these traditional categories, and lo and behold, boom, a sudden complete collapse in births. So yeah.
And another thing, since we're on it, okay, I don't know, did you go to high school in the U.S. or
No,
are you in the
UK?
Okay, I was in the high school in the United States, and I was in advanced placement classes, advanced placement history, advanced placement English, advanced, maybe that was the only two. So I had AP classes, okay? And it's an honor to be in an AP class. It's with the best people in your class, your peers. And it was the way I got into university at the age of 17, earlier than most, because I did well on these exams and it opened the door to the University of California. They want to take that all away. They want to punish merit. They want to destroy these classes. They want to get rid of the SAT, the ACT, all of these exams here. George, if there was a time to really to encourage the best among us of young people, it is now. Right. It is now. Right. Instead of pursuing mediocrity, you should be pursuing excellence.
Right. No, that's exactly right.
Because there won't be equity. Okay. You know what? It's possible in an AP class in California, they're all going to be Asians. And so what?
Wait, that's the thing. I mean,
they're the best.
What's the alternative? I mean, the alternative is then going to be that rich people are going to be able to get their offspring, mediocre offspring, into the best colleges because their parents were alumni, and their parents, rich parents, probably donated money to Harvard and Yale and Stanford, and therefore they're going to reward their donors by allowing in their offspring. And for the rest, then they'll just have their appropriate quotas. And they do the quotas because they don't want to get sued. I mean, they just, if they don't have enough the minorities there, they will get sued by the federal government. So they, this is the game that they've been playing, even though they lie about it because they always say, no.
Well, unless it's the
quotas. Well, but of course they have quotas because every year there's absolutely no change. I mean, that's why the Asians got so suspicious about Harvard, because Asian academic performance has been improving colossally over the decades, and yet year after year at Harvard, the same number of Asians that keep being selected. Well, how is that? Well, because they have quotas. They decide exactly how many Asians they're going to accept every year, and so this the way who's going to get rewarded. Certainly not poor people, not middle class people, not people of merit, but the usual, the very rich and the people who really shouldn't be in the top schools to begin with.
Yeah. In a time of global competition of this intensity, they want to go to rewarding the rich and famous. It was the scandal was called Varsity Blues. It's real, everyone. It's very real. Right. And then you farm it out where you have this quota system, and then they're done, and they're all very, very rich as a result. Okay, this is just the absolutely wrong direction to go in.
Right. That's right. So my next thumbs up is the humiliating defeat of Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour Party in the by-election on Thursday. It is unprecedented for a party in opposition to be trounced so massively in a by-election. It's never happened. And let's remember, Boris Johnson and the Johnson government are not at all popular. The lockdowns were not popular. His economic policies haven't been popular. He's not particularly liked. So this defeat is of absolutely spectacular proportions. I remember Keir Starmer was brought in because Corbyn, Jeremy Corbyn, his predecessor, was doing so terribly and no one wanted to vote for him. Actually, Corbyn had done pretty well in his first election in 2017, came close to winning, which everyone said, oh, we can't do it, too left wing, came close to winning. And then he was, of course, subjected to that horrible, ridiculous, idiotic campaign that he was anti-Semitic and this nonsense. Corbyn, unfortunately, wasn't able to handle it as well as he should have done. He didn't learn sufficiently from his master, Tony Benn. Benn would have known exactly how to handle stupid attacks like that. And then he unfortunately got pushed by the Keir Starmers.
Tony Benn he was a lion.
That's right. He took the wrong position on Brexit. He should have, said, I will respect the wishes of the voters. They wanted Brexit, we'll give them Brexit. Easy thing to do. It would have been absolutely easy. Instead, he went down the path of a second referendum, and then he was done. But even so, he still did better in 2019, which was a horrible debacle for Labour. He did better than Keir Starmer, who incidentally is Julian Assange's nemesis, because he was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, and he was the one urging the Swedes not to come to the UK and interview Julian Assange, which could have settled the whole thing very early on. But he was pressuring the Swedes not to settle the whole matter. So this disgusting human being, it's wonderful that he has been absolutely humiliated.
Well, just one phrase. Karma is a real bitch.
That's it. That's it. Exactly.
Every once in a while, you get what you deserve. That's nice. That's nice in this world.
It really is, exactly. It would have been very depressing had it gone the other way. 2 thumbs up for Keir Starmer. So it's a wonderful. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
But the thing is again, we have these elites that just sneer at at voters. They sneer at them. They, these voters are so beneath them, And then every once in a while they come out and say, okay, not you, okay? I keep saying it here, and I absolutely am convinced of it. The ballot box is the only thing we have left. Right. It's the only thing that's left, and they're tinkering with it, particularly in the U.S., okay? Right. So, I mean, it's the only time working people get to put the finger, okay? It's because we can't do it any other way now.
Right.
We have monopolization of everything, of politics, of business, of everything, Hollywood, academia.
Absolutely. It's the one time people get to choose, unless, of course, it's taken away from them by fraud and deception. And that's clearly why you've really got to be very careful with elections, because powerful people have figured out, how to manipulate elections and, how to rob people of their votes. So, absolutely, vote is all we've got, which is why electoral integrity is so important.
Yeah, well, I got a bad feeling 2020 was the beginning of something, not an anomaly. Yep. The beginning of something. Yep. We'll see.
Yep. Okay.
I'm done.
You're done. I think I'm pretty close to being
done.
Except I have one thing, and it's something that we talked about the other day, but it's worth just bringing up as another thumbs down. The media and their coverage of the Arizona forensic audit. The whole hysteria that's now being whipped up daily on CNN and MSNBC. I mean, they are all beside themselves with fury at a forensic audit. Now, why would anyone be against a forensic audit? It's a right. It's the right of the public to go over the election, to go through properly, make sure that there was nothing untoward happened to an election. And there is absolute meltdown in the media, and in which they're trying to find all of the different ways in which not proper, they're not conducting it properly. There's something, they're not doing it properly. There's something wrong here. And the person who's the head of this company, there's something very suspicious about his background and so on. The very people who are dismissing all of the concerns that were raised about election integrity in November, when people say, well, how come observers were kept out of the vote counting? How come, we have footage of people taking suitcases of ballots from under the desk? How come, you permitted ballot curing? People were told, no, you're not voting here, cross this out, your vote here. And how come all the nursing home trolling that went on, and people were allowed to vote past the deadline and so on? That was okay. No one had any problems with that. Fine. How dare you even question that there was anything about the 2020 election that wasn't on the up and up? But now suddenly everyone is being very punctilious, and we have to investigate every single aspect of this audit. Well, basically, if you're worried about the audit, it looks to me like you've got something to hide.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Kennedy said after he met with Khrushchev the first time. He said, dealing with Khrushchev is like dealing with what is mine, what is yours is negotiable. So, this is exactly how the Democrats and right. CNN, what is mine is mine. What yours is, well, we have to decide that. Okay. Right. All right. I want to do something really special here, and this goes to our followers at Locals. What a wonderful experience so far. It's really a lot of fun. Exactly. I want to do a real quick shout out of people that have posted on our page here, and great appreciation. So here we go. We have Leafy Bug, David Graham, David March, RSVP6, Reldex, Geo9198, Robert Barnes, the great Robert Barnes, our benefactor. Okay. We have Jonathan Gillespie. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's spelled Boumtje. Red Zed, Space Buns, nice name. Hey Jules, Joe M.O., Cat Speaks, Jean-Michel Bell, Ryan B, 1594, Lonnie Holcomb, Antar C, Chicago, and finally Will Bills with a Z at the end. We all thank you for posting on here. Other people that are subscribed and other people that are following, we really appreciate it. And on a regular basis, we're going to call you out because we really appreciate your support. We're really genuinely surprised.
Yeah, no, we're very, very grateful, and we're so happy that so many people have joined and so eager to talk to us, to offer their ideas and suggestions, and that they derive so much pleasure from what you and I are doing, Peter. And we derive pleasure from what we do, and I'm sure we're going to derive a great deal of pleasure from interacting with so many of our new supporters. And it's very exciting. So and we're very, very grateful for all of this. Okay. All right, Peter. So, where do we find us? thegaggle.locals.com. We're on Rumble now. And if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.
That's Bye. It.